We're live. Hello, Tom Levecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. Crossover guest, Mkali today, who was on the NBA and the Buttman podcast, my other podcast with John Panisi, who started his own channel. Check it out, Sit Down News. He also just did a great interview with About the Mafia, Cam, who's on our show there. Check it out when you get a chance. I invited Mkali on here on New Theory, which, as you guys know, for those that listen and watch, and thank you for, I think we're ranking in Austria. We're like top 26 in business. So for those in Austria, Danke, I think you guys speak German. And by the way, Wiener Schnitzel is my jam. When I went to Vienna about 20 years ago, I literally ate Wiener Schnitzel for 3 meals a day. I gained 10 pounds, but I loved it. So anyway, shout out to Austria. So I wanted Mkali to come on. He's an artist. He's an entrepreneur. And candidly, I felt there was a lot more depth to him that the other podcasts, although we cover like organized crime and business, I felt there was a lot more to it. And I'm pretty sure you're going to want to hear a story. Mkali, welcome to the New Theory podcast. How you doing today?
Good, Tom. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So you were chased. It's like a movie. You were chased by a Black Hawk in a field, but we'll get there. So before we get there, and interest of transparency, you're going to want to listen to this. You had a little bit of rough growing up. So why don't you go through a little bit about your formative years and what brought you to here?
Well, it gets. Let me see. I gotta find the starting point for myself because.
Yeah, I mean, I look at formative years from 7 to 17. I think that's a clinical definition, but more importantly, it kind of formed who you are. You don't have to go nuts. Yeah, they could always revert back to the other one.
I'm gonna bounce around a little bit. So, when I was like about, I was born in San Fernando Valley near Los Angeles. My parents separated at 9. My dad was a hardworking guy, but he was a functional alcoholic. This guy was an electrician working with a major plant and owned his own business. He actually wired John Lennon's home. There's only 2,000 of them made of the Dirt Brown album, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's just what I was told from my mom. Dirt Brown album with autographed by Elton John, and I own the copy.
Really?
So, yeah, I have it. It's the only thing I really got personal from my mom when she passed, but which is that, it was fine. When my dad passed, I didn't want nothing from him. I didn't want anything from anybody because we have other siblings. I just let them have it. And I didn't know my dad on that level. At 9, we moved to Fresno, California. My mom had been probably doing heroin probably since I was like 6, 7, but maybe earlier. I didn't realize, I didn't see the signs, the tell signs until I was about 10. I started noticing things, but I still didn't know until about 12 or 13. That's when I really started picking up on it. Okay. And by the time she was 16 or about 15, 16, she hit rock bottom. So I had a stepdad when he first, or my mom's boyfriend for 8 years, we called him stepdad. Yeah. They separated. My mom hit rock bottom. No electricity, no hot water. She moved in she moved in all of my cousins because all of her siblings were in jail and prison. So she moves all them in, and then they have friends too. She moves in too, which are my cousin's friends, and they're all gangbangers. The gang's called the Bulldogs. They all move into my house. Again, we have no electricity, no hot water. My mom would get government aid, and she would take the stamps and she would buy half of food and sell the other half.
Yikes!
She put a padlock, a master deadbolt lock on our refrigerator. And one day my brother breaks it off, and there's nothing in there but water. And
wow!
It was hot. It was like 115 degrees. We drank the water, and she comes down. She goes, "Who drank my water?" And it became the joke of the house. Like we would always joke about. So everything in our home that was really bad, we joked about. We made comedy out of it.
Yeah, I think it was a sign of survival. Like you had to survive, so you had to make light of what's going on.
Yes, and that was our way. And I'm glad we found that. I'm glad I found that route because I could have took the deep end with it and just let it eat me alive, and I didn't. We were just constantly crack jokes about it. So that became my protection, my walls. Yeah. And my cousins were there with their gangbanging friends. They had no respect for my mom, even though she was letting them in their house. Again, understanding the situation and the circumstances, but they were spitting loogies on the walls. They just did not give it. My mom would keep herself locked in her bedroom and she would never come out. And she just, again, she's slamming dope, and she just stay in there and read books.
So I'm fascinated, and I don't mean to.
No, you're
I was
good.
gonna say, and I'm fascinated because I work with Mkali a little bit. We're gonna collaborate on some stuff, but I'm fascinated by considering your start. Remember, I am Catholic. I live personally Catholic, and Christian belief is it's not how you start, it's how it ends. But like for us to be here at this intersection in life, going two totally different paths, and with all due respect, you're almost not supposed to be here. Like you could have chose a super really bad path using addiction, drugs. Now, you weren't perfect, and we'll get into that. But what gave you the strength to not go down that path? And number two, for those that are listening that are struggling, what is your advice to them?
My first off, the reason why I didn't go down that path was because I seen my brain works a certain way, for one. For two, I see things, and I'm not, and what I see is I go to other people's homes and friends, and they've been sitting down, they're eating dinner with a light above the table, they're all conversating. And now, don't get me wrong, most people's homes aren't exactly like that, but you would see that enough to understand this is not, my lifestyle is not how it's supposed to be. This is more of what it should be. Right. So I started striding for that. I like nice things, and I don't mean my materialistic things, but I like to walk into my house be organized, clean. I like to feel good when I come home. So those were other signs of me going, I can't, this house is it's a wreck. You had cockroaches falling from the ceiling. The front door was off the hinge. Like it wasn't like the best situation. So you don't want to be in some place like that. And then I was a straight A student from 6th grade on to 10th grade when everything started getting really, really, really rocky at my home, because that's when my stepdad had left, and he was the foundation, even though he was using. And the reason why he left was because his work seen the potential in him, and they paid for him to get clean. Now he tried to get my mom to do it, but she couldn't do it, and she wouldn't do it, and even as much as she wanted to do it, because coming off that type of drug is just, it's like going through hell and back, And I watched her do it a few times, and it was a lot. So he had to leave her, and when he did that, the whole bottom fell out, and it was just all bad after that.
There, I'm not a psychologist, but I believe there's like two paths: either the emulator, which kind of goes down the path because it's normalized, and then the hero, which is the opposite. Like, we unfortunately come from a family with an alcoholic father, and although we do drink casually, we did lose one brother who succumbed, I think, to his demons. We love him to death, but my other brother doesn't really drink at all, and so it's like follows the hero path. And other people follow, and there's other paths too, but so it's nice to see that you did almost the antithesis of that. So so you graduate. I'm assuming you graduated high school, correct?
Well, I took a proficiency test when I was 16. So I said at 16, everything started falling apart for me, and I couldn't. I had to get it. I had a job at 12 for the summers, and I put the power back on in my house with that money. I bought myself school clothes with that money. And then, because again, my stepdad was using as well, but even though he was working, so they were just both heavily going off the deep end.
Yeah.
And then eventually, when he moved out, I had to become the foundation of my own home. So I didn't have brother and sister, so I ended up dropping out of school, took a proficiency test, which is equivalent to a diploma, and then I started working. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't just working, I was partying. I was trying to mask what's going on in my life too, but not with.
We're young.
Just marijuana and drinking, and but I was not a when you're a product of your environment, you don't want to be a product of your environment, just like your brother, you do the opposite of what you see. You actually learn from the experience. And what I can tell the fans out there, or excuse me, I take that back, your subscribers, what I can tell them is stay focused, understand that what someone else isn't you, and it doesn't have to become you. And that's pretty much my advice on that.
All right. So the reason why you were on the other show, you have an interesting path you took, and you were kind of the weed guy. You were, you saw the knowledge, but you're almost like, I say, I joke around with him, but it's true. He was like 10 or 20 years too late or early rather, sorry, where you are like an expert, or really well, on how to cultivate cannabis crops. That's not like something you just, hey, pick up a book and learn. So give us how you got into that, and give us what gave you that ability to grow in that environment. No pun intended.
No, you're good. So my real calling wasn't the cultivating part, even though I got into that part.
Yeah.
I'm a broker. I'm a businessman. I got in at 15, 16. We got a hold of some weed. I was totally against all drugs, weed, everything. I told my parents I'll call the cops on them, but I was just threatening them. And I never came to that. And then there's a certain part of your life where you hit a certain age, and the peer pressure or experience, you want to try things, you want to learn about things, why this does this and whatever, you start experiencing things. So I started smoking it. And then a friend of mine, he had took a lot from his dad. We ended up rolling it all in joints, like 200, 300 joints, and sold it, and we made money. Okay. So I was like, okay, this is a profitable business that we can do, especially for 16 years old. So we started, putting our feelers out there. I started finding people that had, weight, and I started either getting it fronted to me, or I had saved my money and I buy it. And then we start breaking it up, and I started selling 8s and quarters, and I was known as the weed guy at my school. And then I also known as the party guy too, because I throw major parties, because my mom I could give my mom $30. She go gets her dope. Unfortunately, at some point you kind of utilize her situation instead, because it's just pointless. So
it's what you knew.
Yeah. And I would throw parties at her house, and I'd sometimes clear $1,000 in a night. Yeah. So it was like that's what we were doing. We were just doing all that. And then it broke from there. I started moving from high school. I started getting more into after high school. I started, getting into more weight, pounds and stuff like that. And then I just kept moving up the ladder with just like any business person. You start small, a hot dog stand. Next thing you know, you're Carl's Jr.'s. Yeah. So it's like I started small, started growing, started expanding, and then I started meeting people that were in places where the quantity has grown. Yeah. And friends of mine had moved up that way. Then my mom ends up passing. Well, before my mom passed away, actually, I went up there and I started growing. And the first year I'm there, I popped my intestines. I almost die. And then the second year I go, my mom passes away. And then I go up there again. My girlfriend and I broke up, but we were together for 10 years.
Wait, really quick. Did you get to reconcile your mom a little bit before her passing?
I did. So it was so crazy that the month before she passed, I was driving her to go get breakfast and take her to the methadone clinic. Yeah. And in the car, I told her, I said, Mom, if something happens to you, I am not going to your funeral. And she goes, I know you don't like funerals. I go, no, I don't like your family. And she goes, and she understood. And I go, listen, I'm not going to go someplace that no one comes over to our home. And I'm not even worried about myself. I have a brother and a sister. They're younger. You have 3 kids, and no one comes over to see how your kids are doing, because we're guilty by association. I go, and that's wrong. And I go, and if I'm going to go to your funeral and I'm going to have to listen to one person get up there and say what a great woman you are and how a sweet woman and blessed, and and they go on and on with these stories that they never even came. Why was she so great? Why didn't anybody come around? I would make it to myself. I'd be effing them. I'd be pointing the finger at them. It would become about me instead of about you. So She understood that. A month later, unfortunately, she passed. That was my closure. My uncle is a pastor. He called me. He goes, "You sure you don't want to go to the?" I go, "No, I had closure with my mom." He goes, "You don't think you're going to regret it?" I go, "No, I'm not going to regret it. I don't want to see this what you call a facade or it's a fake. And maybe it's not. We all get caught up in our own situation, our own home life, but when your grandpa and your grandma, when my grandma passed, when your grandpa and them don't come around, and my grandpa tells me, he goes, his wife told me, he passed away a couple of years ago, but his wife just told me, she said, we kept trying to get you guys out of there. We wanted to get you to see.
Oh my God. Hindsight's always fucking 2020. Oh right. My God.
We called CPS. I go, so CPS is going to come over and separate all of us and put us in foster homes instead of you just stepping up and putting us in your home. I go, I'm glad they didn't get a hold of you. I'm glad that never happened, because that would have been the cause effect of that.
Well, you got to forgive me, because you told her, you kind of reconciled, if you will, but you didn't go to the funeral, correct?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So you in a way, you held true to your word. In retrospect, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm pretty good at holding to my word.
At retrospect, as a man, right? And you have an inherited daughter, correct? I believe.
I do.
Okay. So, as a man, you look back and, you know, how do you view your mom differently as a grown man and as a parent?
One thing I can say is, and I found this from people's home. People, I used to live with so many different people's families. So one of the families wanted to adopt me, and I was sitting at dinner. I had reconnected with them after 20 years, and we are having dinner. And they said, and I had another friend of mine from Vegas over there with me, so he doesn't know any of my past. We're sitting there, and the conversation starts coming up, and I call her like another mother of mine. She says, you never once talked bad about your mother ever. And a friend of mine just recently who I hung out with, he said the same thing. You never talked bad about your mom. So when it comes to where I'm at now in life, I miss my mom. I love my mom. That was my best friend. She was so much to me, but I couldn't sit there and watch her take her life slowly. It just became, when you can't break them from what they're doing and they can't get it out themselves, I just can't sit there and watch it. I've moved from Fresno to Sacramento, back to Fresno to Long Beach. I've lived up and down California, staying away from my hometown because I couldn't have being a distant, some way for her to be able to take a bus, a car, a walk to my home and ask me for money or just see her in her condition. I just couldn't do it no more. It was just too much for me.
Yeah. So you get into the Wii game. I don't want to, only because again, we'll put a link to the other show too, because you do talk in good depth there. But I want to get into, because there's a lot to unpack. I want to talk a little bit about, you got into the Wii game. You kind of, so the first year, had an issue.
Yeah.
Second year, your mother passed. Now the third year, ironically,
right?
right?
Second year,
your mother passes. And the third year it started.
There's only 2 years I was there.
Oh, so basically you never got it off the ground.
Well, the first year I made $30K because another friend of mine said he deserved that because I got into the accident and I was up there the whole time. It's the second year after my mom passed, I was up there. So the second year, no, how to explain this? The second year, I'm so confused with time sometimes, dude. It's just a lot.
It's all right. Share where you can.
The second year I'm up there. My mom died the first year, actually. So the first year after I got into that accident, we went back up there after I healed about 2 months. And I really wasn't completely healed. And I still went back up there 2 months later to harvest. On my drive up there, my mom dies. My sister calls me and tells her she overdosed. She's in cardiac arrest. They're trying to get her revive her and this and that. The second year, I go up there on my own accord. No mom, no girlfriend. We had broken up 4 months prior. And I get up there and we started doing our thing. It's August 29th, 2005. I'm in the garden. It's like 6:30 in the morning. I have my dog with me. We're watering the bushes and a Black Hawk helicopter comes flying over the garden. And I'm sitting there seeing it and I'm thinking it's camp, which is California Against Marijuana Patrol or something like that. Yeah, I didn't think I had a lot to lose at that point. You're supposed to just hide or run and you'll be good. There's no big deal. But what ended up happening was it wasn't them, obviously. So the Blackhawks start circling around. I run back up to the cabin to get my backpack. In my backpack's my.
So what did you hear? That?
Oh no!
What did you hear first?
I heard that, but they were literally. I mean, I could throw a rock and hit the guy out the because they had the whole side panel open. And I could throw a rock and hit the guy. Like he was like 20 feet from me, but I was hiding. I seen him. I hid behind the bush. I'm sure they seen me way before I did that. And
I'm guessing. So there's ground, there's air, and the air support is a Black Hawk. That's nuts. Right. And then how many guys showed up on the ground roughly?
Well, when I ran back up there to grab my backpack, I started beelining toward the corner, which goes down a mountain. I stopped there. I had a walkie-talkie in my hand. I start calling one of the guys in the walkie, no one's answering. So I throw the walkie in the bushes because I just didn't want to deal with it. But right when I had done that, 3 unmarked white Mustangs, newer Mustangs for 2005, whatever, pull up. Guys jump out of the vehicles, surround the cabin. I hear their guns clacking. They're all pointing their guns at the cabin. I'm standing right behind them, like they didn't even see me. Their adrenaline must have been flowing so hard that they didn't even notice me standing behind them. I'm like 20 feet behind them with my dog. My dog starts charging them. I'm yelling at my dog because I don't want him to get shot. He turns around towards me. We both start running down the mountain. Get down to the creek. I say there's probably about 10 of them. I get down to the creek bed, and I'm bleeding and everything, sliding down the mountain and stuff and whatever. I get down there. I get under a rock. It's just a huge rock, and it was like leaning like this. So I crawl into my dog. My dog is growling. I'm trying to calm him down because he's feeling my energy. And he finally starts. I muzzle him. The helicopter starts trying to come down, push the trees away so they could scare me out or see me. And I just stayed there. And then the helicopter takes off because someone down the creek had been found, and they probably thought it was me. So they take off. So when they did that, I sat there for a second, my adrenaline had taken over me really. So I had to really calm down a little bit. Do I leave my backpack here, or do I take it with me and run? I said, I'm just going to take it with me. So I wish I would have left it, but either way, I didn't. And I took it with me. There's a meadow. When you come out of the creek on the other side, there's a meadow, and the meadow takes you down to the Eel River. And my plan was to run across the meadow, drop down to the Eel River, and then run along the river, and then go find a place to take off and hide. And I didn't realize down on the creek floor, there's another cabin down there.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they had intervened in that cabin too. There was a lot of them down there. So when I jumped out into the meadow, I heard guns clack, and they say, "Stop, we're going to shoot your dog." So I stopped.
Hey.
My dog now, my dog then, they mean everything to me.
Jesus.
You don't get unconditional love from, I don't even care, from your own mom. Dogs are just something else. That's a whole nother story. But I had
your dog. That's fucking nuts.
Yeah. So I grab my dog. We turn around. He tells me to leash him. I leash him. And we start walking back towards them. They take us to the cabin down at the bottom. They put us on the deck. They start taking pictures of us. I'm like talking like we're posing, side picture, front picture, back picture. And then they start asking me questions, and then they start not anything pertaining to the case, but just what's in my backpack. And they start looking through my backpack, and they see I had jewelry, I had stuff in there. They said, "Is there anything in your backpack you want to, put on?" Pretty much, I guess they're asking me to put on Discover. I've never been in trouble before, so I don't know. I go, "No, there's something in the backpack." I'm not thinking. They ended up stealing all that stuff. And then I ended up taking me to the top of the mountain. They're waiting up there. They're asking questions of people they've already kind of picked up off the street, up on the mountain, on the road or dirt road or whatever you call it. And none of those guys were on a search warrant. One of the guys comes back and said, "Hey, your name's on a search warrant." I go, "What?" I didn't understand why. At the time, I had my medical. I feel I'm legal in the state of California to do what I was doing. Unfortunately, there is a gray area. I kind of knew about it, but I thought that I was covered. I thought at some point I was kind of covered, even though in the back of my head, I probably figured I wasn't, but then again, I thought I was. So, it was just really.
So hold on. I have two questions. Sorry to interrupt you. I have two important questions. First question is, how big were you to justify those type of resources to arrest you? You had to be moving some weight. I mean, you weren't like a small time dude.
It was like a combination of things that they stumbled on us. So we weren't that big. There was people way doing.
No, but what, like, I don't know. Like, were you doing $500,000 in production a year retail, $1 million, 5 million? I don't know what,
Our first garden, when I popped my intestines, that one got us 125 pounds, 125 pounds of 25 plants. That's 5 pounds a plant. And those plants,
25 pounds, isn't like $2K a pound?
Yes. No. Back then in 2005, it was almost $3K a pound.
Oh, so you were, all right. You were, all right. So this wasn't a small endeavor in terms of an entrepreneurial venture. Okay. That's fair.
So, but they had stumbled across, there was a missing persons in the area. That was one. Two, there was that was linked to some people I knew. And then there was another, we got a guy back home in our hometown he was going wherever he was going, because he didn't go to the same people we went to when we were buying. And he was going up north to buy. He had like 30K on him, gets pulled over by the cops. They find the money. He had no way to tell where the money came from. They confiscated the money. And then they pretty much, he pretty much got interrogated, excuse me. And I think I know he gave a lot of information.
So
about
on the first one, the missing person, what did you do with the body?
Yeah, fuck.
Just mess with
I didn't even know that guy, but he was huge up there. He was an activist up there. He would sit on the porch in Eureka, I believe, and up in Humboldt, Eureka, with weed plants. and he was trying, saying that, we're legal, this is medical, this and that, whatever. But he was put in jail from what I understood. And then when he got out, he came up north, he came up where we were at to meet with his other business partner. And then when he was leaving the property, he was never seen again.
So when you were selling, right, you would obviously harvest, get it ready. I guess like bays, like a, I guess it's a whole thing, right? Like it's a big, not like hay. What is that called? Bays? What is the name for it?
You mean like a haystack, a bushel?
Yeah, like wasn't it like how was it delivered? Like was it wrapped up and like?
Oh no, no, it's not compressed, so it's never like that'll ruin it. So that they gets clean, it gets dried, it gets cleaned, it gets bagged, and they put them in turkey bags so it doesn't smell.
So where does it go? So where does it go after that? Who pays you?
It goes either to it would go to back then, it'd go to dispensaries or it'd go to the black market. And it's just whoever people would come up there and buy. People would people in your hometown that you knew. You had a handful of people that were weed.
But you were a little like, I'm not saying you were the biggest. You weren't like the Pablo Escobar of weed, but you also weren't that small. Were you like, you need distribution? Was it groups of like bikers, organized crime, cartel? You don't have to give names, obviously. So
No.
But
at that point, it was none of that. It was your blue collar workers. They were buying it. People would buy a pound or so for themselves.
you buy wholesale, really?
Yeah, pretty much.
So I'm guessing. So if you did smaller bundles, I'm just thinking business wise.
Yeah.
So not justifying what you did, but
Right.
if I could see if like the cartel showed up in a truck, it's 3,000. Hey, get 3 for 2,500. You unload it, right? But
Right.
since you were doing smaller batches, I'm guessing you got a premium on your amount per pound, correct?
Yes.
Was that a strategy, or that was a market you serviced, or both?
Well, when there's 3 or 4 of us on a grow, like we're splitting things up, money wise, like a percentage wise, I was making 30. I made 30. No, I made the first year I did, it was like 5 for 10%. So because I didn't put no money in it, I was just working.
Yeah, it's a co-op.
Yeah. So since I was working it, instead of getting paid hourly, I just said I'll take a percentage, and that percentage gave me like 20, I don't know, 15 pounds is what it gave me, roughly about 15 pounds. And then I have cousins that were I had one cousin that was in San Diego. He came, he would buy 5 at a time, and then I had another friend to buy 2 or 3 at a time, and then he'd front some out to a couple friends, and then they would come back, and so it was just all broken up. Only 15 pounds goes by real fast. If I would have stayed up there and everything would have went the way it went, personally myself, I probably would have stayed another 2 years and been gone, because I wanted to take that money and put it into a real business. I wasn't trying to make that my life. Now, the people that were there, I can't vouch for them for that, because I think that's what they did, that's what they knew, and that's what they wanted to do.
And then you took a pinch for that particular arrest, correct?
Yes.
How long did you go away for?
Well, they started off with 15 to life. It was a crazy thing. And I was looking, I'm like, they're psychotic. And then they went down to 10, then it went to 5, and then they went down to 2 years, 8 months. And then I pled out of 15 months. And then I go sit in front of the probation officer. His name was Bedrosian. He actually started reading we had to do a PSI report, which is basically the story of your life, has all your bills, all your doctor bills, anything that all your the jobs you worked at, all your W-2s. It's basically everything, covering everything. He even asks you questions about your upbringing. What's
the goal of it?
It's just really, I don't know what the goal of it is, be honest, but it's just basically it's basically everything. I think it goes in front of the judge, and it kind of helps you, because the prosecutor said I was a nomad, I was vagabond, I had no home, I've never had a job. So when I had the PSI report, it shows all my W-2s, all the places I've worked, and it wasn't just I worked spot working 5 months here, 2 months here. I had 5 years. I worked at Macy's. I worked for the what do you call it, the art display department, and then I also worked in the women's fragrances, because I was working my way to I went to fashion school, so I was working my way to be a buyer at some point. So then I just I saw politics in that, and I started getting burnt out on it. So I changed from there. I worked at a winery for a couple of years. I did electrical work for 5-6 years. where air conditioning worked. That was my first job when I was 12.
So when you get out, considering you have a bust, you know, you have a record, traditional jobs are tough, right? So you obviously did a whole bunch of things along the way. And then you landed yourself in Vegas. What brought you to Vegas?
I ended up, as soon as my case was over, probation, all paper was done. I moved to North Hollywood, California, and I started working in production. I mean, my
Oh,
passion.
wow.
I draw, I write, I just I was
Hey,
making,
you do sketch comedy. I saw you. There's a whole bunch
yeah.
of things that you
Yeah,
know.
I had a t-shirt. I had a clothesline back when I was 20. The people stole my character and patented it behind my back, and I seen six figures fly out the window because they went all over the country, went all over the world. Actually, it was selling better in places like Japan and China than it was even in the United States. But I know those guys made six figures on that. And then so I had a bad taste in my mouth with that. Then I started doing music. When I moved to Sacramento, messing with music, and
Singing or instrumental.
hip hop, writing lyrics, and then
Okay.
putting the hip hop in sound. I wasn't like I'm just articulate. I just love the creating part of it. And then from there, I do have music out that I've done. Then from there, I branched out. We started doing a clothesline again because I started feeling like I wanted to get start accomplishing that again. So I started working with that. And then when I got in trouble and went back to North Hollywood, I said, you know what, love writing. So I want to start writing skits. I want to start writing sketch writing. I want to start doing, maybe start writing movies or stuff like that. So I started going to that route, and then I met some people there, and I started working in that department. And then from there, we opened our own studio. I was working with Funny or Die. I was working with I was doing central casting, which is background work, and I was working with Funny or Die doing PA work, art department, and stuff like that, grip work. And then I ended up going and we opened up a studio with another actress. She's still up and coming. She's a lot of stuff, and then a couple other partners. And that studio did production. It did photography. It did dance, and it
So it was
did
a little bit like of a collective of artists getting together.
yes, and it did music recording. So
Got
we
it.
had a music recording studio that was really nice. We had everything was really, it was a really nice place. But 4 years of a lot of partners fell off. So it became me and two other partners, and it was like about two K a month to keep that place going. I'm paying almost $3,000 a month for my where I live, my 2-bedroom, 2-bath place. So I'm pretty much working every day just to pay bills. And I do get to go to work at my studio and create, which was great. But when you got bills hanging over your head there too, your creating is not making the bill money. You have to.
So the artist life wasn't what it cracked up to be. So no, but so I get that because I hear that a lot. But you have an entrepreneurial bug too, right? So you follow your artistry, you realize like all of us do. Sometimes following your passion is great, but you need to monetize it. And then you like you said, you had a bit of it. Like, so I was, because I didn't ever think I asked you, what brought you to Vegas? And then what are some of the stuff you're working on now?
Well, as soon as I got burnt out after 5 years, I got burnt out of LA area. We started looking into moving to Orange County, and we're gonna be close to the ocean. And I'm doing these things for my daughter and for my lady because I know she loves the ocean. So I said,
Nice.
we started looking at the bills, and I still had the studio at the time. So now I'm gonna have a longer drive, and pay more money to live closer to the ocean.
Correct.
So I started looking and weighing my options out, and I'm like, this is a lot. And I had a friend of mine when I was locked up or whatever, when I was in federal, I met a lot of good people because I was in a federal camp. Okay, so there's one guard, no gun, and no fences. So everyone there is blue collar, doctors, lawyers, judges. You're in there with millionaires. You're in there with some pretty good experience and very intelligent people.
Yeah.
So being there, I met a couple friends there. One was in Vegas. I started talking to him. He says, you can always move here. He goes, the cost of living is cheap here. He goes, you'll be able to find a job even with your back with the felony. I said, okay. So I called my girl. I said, let's move to Vegas. And she's like, okay,
well, let's do it.
We moved there. 2 years in an apartment. Then third year, I bought a home, upgraded my vehicle. I have 3 Raiders season tickets holder seats for, that was a chunk. It was an investment.
I will come. Oh, you bought the PSL, right? The license.
Yeah.
Do you have that there?
30 years I own the seats for.
Oh shit. So I will visit you and we'll go to a game.
Yeah.
Well, I'm inviting myself, but okay. So, all right. So current day, you've been through a lot, you got some stuff cooking. I know you partnered with JC and I know you're relaunching a new show. So we're going to stay tuned for that. You were on the NBA Button Man with our show. That show did particularly well. I'll put a link below so people can check out that interview, learn more about you. What are some of the other things that you're working on that you can share?
Well, besides the podcast world, which I'm hoping takes off and goes into opens other doors.
Yeah.
I have a patent working in the field that I was always, even though it seems like I was always in that field, but there was no passion really in that field. I was just looking at the business aspect of it, trying to make money. And I was still have contact with all those people. I started brainstorming and came up with an idea of something that can make part of the industry's life easier.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that right now. Once that gets off the ground, I'm very excited about it, and I feel like it's gonna prosper and do very well for myself. And besides that, I still do photography. I call myself a work in progress because, like most artists, I'm hard on myself. And I'm still learning a lot, and I'm still willing to learn a lot. But I don't feel like I'm a lot like the photographers that are out there. There's some good ones, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of people that claim of fame that they're artists, but they're just taking pictures for either money or for personal gain, but for me, yes, that would be great to make money and make it a living, but at the end of the day, it's still an art form to me. I still like to capture certain stuff and where the picture is an picture, not just a girl in a bikini or a girl in lingerie. So I work with that. I do production. I do work on some adult film stuff. I have friends of mine in that industry as well. And yeah, well,
It's okay. It's okay. I had Chris Ciccanelli. He started a company called True Romance, and they sell sex toys through multi-level marketing, essentially, or like kind of the Tupperware model, the old Tupperware model, and they do 300 million a year. So I was like, you know what? Hey,
it's a huge industry. Anything in that industry. Anything pretty much with makeup, the sex industry.
So whatever. You don't have your OnlyFans account is not public yet, correct?
No, I'm trying. It's too hard. It's too much keep up on the Brazilians. I can't keep up with all that. It's just way too much work.
That's why I say the comedic portion comes out. We're gonna put a link to your Instagram because I figured that'd be a good place to find you, follow you. I'm also gonna put a link because I know people that watch this on the back channel, Tom LeVecchia channel. That's my second channel where I put my new theory stuff now. We have big NBA Button Man fans there, so I'm gonna put your interview there just in case they didn't see it. And I'll give you the final words. I was excited to have you on. I'm gonna have you back on. We didn't even touch, I think, half the stuff we needed to touch. I know we had to gloss over a few things in interest of time, but I'll have you close this one out.
I appreciate it. I thank all the people that watch your show. I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone that's in your circle, and I'm glad to be part of it. So I'm gonna keep. We're gonna keep this alive. That's all I could say.
God bless, brother. Make sure you like, subscribe, put on notifications. It's a backup channel. We want to get to 1,000 subs. We're like 500 and change. Our other one is doing pretty well. Check out the NBA and Button Man, and talk to you soon.